Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm a member of the congregation at Christchurch Chilwell, and I'd love to share some thoughts and reflections with you today on Psalm 46. So before we read that together, I wonder, have you ever been caught in a storm? A storm with howling winds and beating rain. I remember vividly one occasion during a hike on the Exmoor Hills as part of a summer youth camp I'm involved with. We spent one day walking in wonderful, beautiful sunshine, clear skies, a gentle breeze, expecting some rain the next day, but nothing could have prepared us for the storm that came. The rain was coming from all directions, the wind was howling, and it was definitely a challenge to cook our breakfast around our little camping stove as we all tried to shelter it from the wind and the rain. We had another full day of walking ahead of us, but there was the promise of a hot shower and dry clothes at the end, and that was certainly something that helped us through the storm as we thought and persisted through with that. So we're going to think more about that as we look at Psalm 46 together. So let's read. I'm going to start at verse 1 and to verse 8. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. So how do we cope when storms and troubles come? Well, I think there is a few things that we can be remembering as we look at those beginning verses from Psalm 46. When we think back to life a year ago, I'm sure for most of us it was definitely very different, and the sudden arrival of the storm was definitely something that overwhelmed many of us and left us very shaken. Sometimes trouble comes like a storm, other times with the finality of an earthquake, and at other times, as in verse 3, it's like a flood. In verse 3 it says, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. It's a picture of being shaken, swelling flood waters that threaten to overwhelm, and it's an image I know many of us can relate to in the current climate and with how life has been in this past year. But in verse 1, this is what we read: God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. So what do we do when trouble comes and threatens to overwhelm us? Well, let me just encourage you. God is the refuge of his people. What does it mean for God to be our refuge? Well, as we look back to the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, we read about cities of refuge, a place of mercy for those who were seeking it. They might have many things they might have done, murdered someone by accident, things that would cause them to be punished. They could go to a city of refuge and find a safe place. And that is the picture we have of God, a refuge that we can come to in times of trouble. He is continually available to his people. We shouldn't try to deal with and cope with the trouble on our own, but instead, let's admit that we're beaten and head to a city of refuge. Going to a city of refuge would be fairly pointless if the gates had fallen down. There would be no point saying that God is our refuge if he wasn't strong enough. There is no trouble that can come upon us that is greater than the strength of our God. What it also says in verse 1 is that God is an ever-present help in trouble. For the psalmist, this is that reminder that he doesn't have to reach very far to find the hand of God. There's not far he has to go to know that he is held by God. And for us, living now in the light of Christ, this is even more true. There's not far we have to go to find God because of Jesus. He dwells within us. You cannot get any more present than that. Christ in you. In the midst of trouble, I recognise that God is my refuge and I turn to him. So let me encourage you, in the midst of whatever storm you may be facing, even in the storms of the day, what will you do? Let's remember the truth of these verses. God who is a safe place, a refuge. God who is adequate, your strength. And a God who is ever present, living within you.